Welcome back to my channel. My name is CeeCee and today I am finally ready to show you around my newly reorganized, revamped, made over art studio. I'm going to keep the intro super short, but before we get started, I just want to stress out one thing. You don't need a specific dedicated room or a big space to be creative. You can very well do this in a small space. Just make it yours. Make it so that it's inviting and inspiring. For me, the big motivator to do the whole makeover is that this room had become too cluttered. But I also do understand that some people thrive in clutter around them. They find this really inspiring. So don't think that what I have done with the whole decluttering process, which I will link right here, is necessary to be creative as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. People are different and they get their inspiration from different vibes. For me, I need a clean slate. So I'm very happy to have gone through this process. I just want to say a huge thank you to my awesome patrons over at Patreon who not only support my art but allowed me to take almost a month off to do this whole process. So awesome patrons, you know you rock. Thank you so very much. All right, so that's it. Let's get on with the tour. I want to start by giving you a 360 of the room. It's not very big, but it's a decent size. It's irregular because I do have a post in the middle of one of the walls and the closet is protruding inside of the room. At its smallest, it measures 8 feet by 10 feet. Most of the furniture is from IKEA. So as you enter the room, the first thing you see is my shipping station. The top is left quite empty so that I can do all the packaging. And to make that process easier, I made sure that all the supplies I needed for packaging and shipping are right in that unit. This is also where I store extra camera and video camera gear. I also store anything that is flat in those drawers, like substrates, watercolor paper, specialty paper, my portfolio, some artwork that's all ready to go, as well as my stock of handmade greeting cards. These two top drawers have all my watercolor papers, with the exception of the B paper, which I used to experiment and do most of my morning practices. The last bank of drawers are for punches, as well as embellishments, cutting tools, glitter, pigment powders, embossing powders, as well as drawing papers. And the drawing papers are right next to my writing desk because this is where I do most of my sketching. And finally, in the last cubby, I have chipboard and cardstock as well as empty cases. To the right of that, I have a Raskog cart that contains everything I need for journaling, junk journaling, planning, decoupaging, sketching, drawing. It holds my favorite pens and markers as well as inks, some stickers and papers for decoupaging, as well as washi tapes. On the writing desk, I have this cool little lamp that's also a recharging station for my phone. The left-hand side drawer is full of notebooks and paper pads and specialty paper. The middle section, which was a keyboard tray, holds a paint palette that I'm trying to use up. And on the right-hand side, I have more pens, highlighters, extra fountain pens, a calculator, staplers, and paper clips. The unit on the right of my writing desk stores things that I don't reach for on a regular basis, but that still need to remain in this room. Things like adhesive refills, books for decoupaging, sticker paper, and the cutting mat for the silhouette. The silhouette machine is stored in my closet, but if I were to need it, I would take it out of the closet and put it on that shelf right above it. So it was very important for me to have all the supplies right underneath. And then I have the only acrylic paints that are in this room, and these are from Paper Artsy because I use them in my journals. And these are my ongoing journals. Right below that, I have a basket full of tools that I don't use all that often, like an extra glue gun and tools to work metal. I've kept very little pattern paper, but this is where you would find them, as well as extra office supplies like post-it notes, glue sticks, and staples and all that. The next two baskets are mainly for sewing. This is a Sew Mini by Janome. I have my ribbons and threads, as well as extra fabric and notions. Right above that, I have some of my art books and reference books, as well as a dictionary for collaging. And right next to it, you'll find my other reference books. This is a very small bookshelf that also contains my scissors dies as well as thin dies. In the previous video, I spoke about a flat plug, so here it is. It's a real space saver, especially in a small room. It allows you to push a piece of furniture right up against it, and I got it at my local Home Depot. This is probably the least aesthetic part of my studio, but it's actually quite functional. I have the space to put my tripod, and behind the computer is where all the connectors are for my electronics, as well as a power surge bar, but I don't see it when I'm in front of the computer, so it doesn't bother me. This is my newest filming installation. It's overhead. It's actually a microphone stand that clips onto a table, and I also used a binder clip to hold the extension cord in place. This stick is part of a tripod that I used to have. It's glued with a foam adhesive and tie wraps, and it's quite solid. To the right of my art desk, I have my favorite painting as well as a vision board, which I will talk about in greater detail in a future video. In these cabinets, I keep mementos, the very few stamp sets that I still have, and tools and mediums that are mostly related to watercolor and coloring and drawing, because that is my main focus. In this basket, I keep watercolor pigments and mediums, as well as masking fluids and stickles, a label maker and a Dymo, specialty glues, fine line applicators, toothpicks, Q-tips, paper stumps, and my Gamsol in a jar. In a set of acrylic jars, I have scraps of paper on top. Then I have fine liners and markers for doodling, pencils and erasers, and finally my Inktense pencils. This is also where I keep my other sketchbooks as well as swatch books. My watercolor brushes are stored in glass jars. I also have a bottle of white ink, a water spritzer, some white ink, and my favorite gold ink. This desk sits right next to me, and it holds another acrylic bin where I store paint markers, gold pens, as well as my Prismacolor pencils. Next to that is my Hobonichi Cousin planner, as well as an electric sharp. In these drawers, I keep watercolor paint tubes as well as pencils, gouache, Neocolor tube pencils, pastel pencils, inks, and liquid watercolor bottles, extra white gel pens and Stardust pens, as well as everything related to alcohol inks. The trash bin on the left is actually a basket I no longer used, and to the right I keep my Copic markers in a Copic case, as well as my Polychromos pencils. I love this case because it protects the lead, but it also allows me to pull it up on my desk and I'm able to see all the colors that I have very easily. And it's also perfect for traveling because it does come with a strap. This big table is where I film my art videos as well as do live streams and edit. So I have a little stool there to rest my feet on. In the first drawer to my right, I store watercolor paper remnants so that I can swatch colors when I start a new project. I also keep 2 paper packs of B watercolor paper. These are 100% cotton. One is 90 pounds, so it's perfect for experimenting. These are my current watercolor paint palettes, which I pull on my desk when I need them. For each of these palettes, I made swatch cards that can stand on my desk. Each paint palette has a corresponding swatch card that can stand on my desk. I have a video where I show how I put them together, and I will link to it in an iCard as well as in the description. The last drawer is reserved for miscellaneous items such as rubber bands, magnet strips, pins for the pegboard, and hooks and binder clips. In the set of drawers to the left is where I keep my essentials such as baby wipes, gloves, tissues, Swiffer refills, scissors, my ATG gun, computer equipment, as well as my current business files. In the closet, I keep things that I don't necessarily touch every day but need to be within arm's reach. Things like the CeeCee die cutting machine, the silhouette, the disc binding system perforator, Xyron laminating machine, hot glue gun, heat tools, large scissors, T-rulers, my light box. I have 2 printers, so they're also in the closet. One is a Brother all-in-one printer, and the one on the right is a Canon Pixma Pro 100. I also store my stencils in the closet, and for this I use plastic J-hooks to hang them up from the top shelf. And I also tuck away some aprons in the corner there. The paper shredder is on wheels, so it's very easy to push it out of the way so I can access those plastic bins. And these contain stuff for making cards and my rejected artwork paper, as well as old iPhones, old equipment, and hard drives. In this cabinet, I have everything for my printing needs, so paper, ink cartridges. The last drawer is for hanging folders, and this is where I keep old business documents. And now we're going to come out of my art studio to go in the living room. This shelving unit used to be in my studio, and it now stores all my acrylic paints, which I don't use all that much, so they don't need to be in the studio. This is also where I store all the mediums for mixed media and the paintbrushes for acrylic paints, some pigments, finished art journals, sketchbooks and art journals that have yet to be touched, and as well as all my mediums for acrylic painting and mixed media. And this concludes the studio tour. So here is a view from my art desk. It feels so fresh and peaceful. It is simple, but it's also very warm, and most importantly, I feel very inspired every time I walk in here, and that's what counts. I want to say a big thank you to my awesome patrons over at Patreon who have supported this endeavor. I wouldn't have been able to do it without their help. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I will see you later.